A lot to dive into. Man, it never seems like there's a dull moment around the Philadelphia Eagles, even in times where things are supposed to slow down a little bit. The Senior Bowl underway. Of course, they hired Doug Peterson. A couple contract signings this week, but they got some other ones on the way, and we'll talk to Jimmy Kempski about them now. Who is the Eagles' top target now that Ertz and Selleck have been signed? What is next for this team? Jimmy Kempski, PhillyVoice.com, covers the Birds. Never a slow time for this Eagles team, is there, Jimmy?
Never is, Mike. How you doing?
Do you guys get time off? Like, is there any, like, I'm only allowed to take off certain times of the year. Do you have that same time, or is it like, nope, 24/7, 365 Eagles cycle?
I thought I was going to get a little break when the season ended. And then they go ahead and fire Chip, and before the season even ended, obviously, and that kind of ruined those plans. But I mean there are some dead times in the summer, which is nice, but for the most part, it's a 365 kind of.
Sure is. Let's first the Ertz and Selleck signings. Get your takes on them. We talked about it the day they signed Ertz. I mean, $42 million at the tight end position. I mean, that's top 5 tight end money. They better darn use him. But is that a clear sign that these two guys should be a bigger part of the offense now?
They may be. I actually spoke with a few people that follow the Chiefs closely, and the perception they use Travis Kelsey quite a bit in their offense, and to the contrary, they actually their sentiment was that Kelsey should have been used more than he was. That they should have sort of that the Chiefs should have run their offense through him, and that's even after Macklin got there. But they didn't really do that. Kelsey did have good numbers, and he had good production, but they felt that he should have been used more. So I don't know if that means that Ertz will be used more. Ertz had a huge last 4 games of the regular season, and some of it in garbage time, but did have some good production those last 4 games, and his numbers have increased every year with the Eagles. So I think they see that upward trajectory. And, they wanted to make sure that they locked him up before he had a chance to hit the open market, of course, which will be next year. I think they wanted to make sure they locked up guys like that in case they need to use the tag for Fletcher Cox, although I'm sure they'd like to get something done early with him as well. But, certainly Ertz is one of the better weapons on their offense that is kind of devoid of them in the passing game, aside from proven weapons in the passing game anyway, aside from Jordan Matthews. So, he's a guy that I think they see as a core guy, and they wanted to lock him up.
Yeah, now Ertz is here. Selleck gets a contract to stay here as well, but the money would indicate that Ertz will clearly kind of become a bigger factor than maybe he was even before. I think those last 4 games were great, but he did that the year before too, Jimmy, where he had those 2 really big games to close out the year. So you're hoping you're hoping that they give him an opportunity, because I think Kelly he did say that injury held him back a little bit.
Yeah, and it did. He had that issue at the end of training camp and actually got back more quickly than was projected. And I don't think that they were anticipating him playing in that first Week 1 game in Atlanta, and he did. So yeah, he was still hampered by that injury early on. But certainly you'd rather see him put a full year together than just putting up some lofty numbers at the end of the season.
Yeah, Jimmy, and there's a lot going on. I mean, the Senior Bowl is happening. I believe you're down there still, correct?
I am in lovely Mobile, Alabama, as we speak.
That is nice. So we'll get into that in just a minute, but I want to ask you about Fletcher Cox. You mentioned the franchise tag. There's some talk that they want to extend him, but you look at the contract of that position. He's due to make a lot of money. Do you think he's on the level of some of those guys that got that big-time money and haven't performed as well since they got that money?
Sure. Yeah, I think he's right in the same league as those guys. And, some of the names that interior defensive linemen that have gotten paid recently include J.J. Watt, Marcel Darius, Ndamukong Suh. There's a 4th guy that I'm missing here, but
Marcel Darius,
and then there's a 4th guy who I'm missing. I can't recall who that is, but there's a number of guys that gotten paid a ton of money, and we're talking about $15 to $20 million a season, with Ndamukong Suh being on the high end on that one. But that was kind of a dumb contract that the Dolphins gave him. But I'll digress. Fletcher Cox is going to get paid, and he was a first-round pick, of course, so which gave the Eagles the opportunity to use their fifth year. They had him basically under control for the fifth year. They have to pay him just a shade under $8 million in 2016, and then in 2017 he will become an unrestricted free agent. So if they do need to use the tag on him, if they can't get something worked out before then I think certainly that is in the back of their minds that they can do that. But one way or the other, Fletcher Cox is going to get paid. Just a matter of when they're able to do it or somebody else is. Yeah, and now
Doug Peterson talked about yesterday wanting Jason Peters back. He's a guy that gets paid a lot of money, too, over the next 3 years he still has on his deal. He's making about $9 million a year over the next 3 years. And I guess if they cut ties with him, they could save a considerable chunk of money. Are you surprised that he is so outwardly wanting Peters to be back here next year?
Yeah, a little surprised about how emphatic they were about that. Like you said, he's going to count for about $9 million on the cap in 2012. If they were to cut or trade him, they'd save, I believe it's a little over $6 million off the cap, and he's 34. I think clearly he's in decline. He battled through, a lot of sort of nagging type injuries last season that just kind of weren't going away. I think that, if they didn't see themselves as really, legitimate Super Bowl contenders, maybe you can trade him to a team that, thinks that maybe they are, but don't have a left tackle that they think they can rely on. But, Peterson did seem sort of emphatic that they were going to keep him around. And you can see the argument for that, too, because, they have two guards that they're going to have to they're going to have to upgrade the left guard position and the right guard position. Now, if you get rid of your left tackle, you have three positions on the offensive line, and now you've included the most important one on the line, although, of course, you could move Lane Johnson over. But, you're basically opening up a third hole on that offensive line if you don't keep him around. And that becomes a really monumental task of replacing those three guys in one offseason.
Jimmy Kempski's in Mobile, Alabama, which is the place to be right now. The Eagles, of course, scouting down there. I want to get into some of the Howie Roseman stuff with you in just a bit because I know he's down there and Jeffrey Lurie's down there. But first, as you wrote over at PhillyVoice.com, Vinny Curry, the top immediate free agent priority. Number one, what kind of deal do you think he's lined up for? And do you think there's going to be a lot of people, lining up for him, especially a team in your own division like the Giants?
I think a logical comparison for Vinny Curry would actually be Brandon Graham because Brandon Graham, you look at what he was last offseason, there's a guy who is, not getting as much playing time as some people thought he should because he was playing behind, Connor Barwin and Trent Cole. They let Trent Cole go. They made an effort to re-sign Brandon Graham. And he wound up getting a 4-year deal worth $26 million. I believe it was $13 million guaranteed. And you have a similar situation with Vinny Curry in that, a lot of people believe that he should be getting more playing time than he was. And now you have a 4-3 scheme that'll better suit his skill set. So, while he hasn't had, tremendous production throughout his career, it's really not completely his fault because, again, he's playing in a scheme that didn't suit his skill set. And he was, sort of unable to get on the field despite maybe which really wasn't indicative of his ability. Just for whatever reason, he just couldn't get on the field when he probably should have been on the field more. And now he's in a better situation with a defensive coordinator who will be able to better utilize his strengths. So I think he could be in line for that kind of payday. I think his situation mirrors to some degree. I mean, it's not a perfect comparison, but to some degree, it does kind of mirror the Brandon Graham situation of a year ago.
Hey, Jimmy, Chris Wilson was hired yesterday. Not many times since Jim Washburn has a defensive line coach got a lot of publicity, but this one seems to have an interesting connection because he's coached both Fletcher Cox but also a lot of some top-level NFL guys. So it seems like, having him here deserves a little bit of mention.
Yeah, he coached Gerald McCoy in Oklahoma, although Oklahoma, I had actually heard today that he was a defensive end coach, so I'm sure his paths crossed with Gerald McCoy, but I'm not sure exactly how much, immediate attention he was able to give him. And then he coached Leonard Williams at USC. You mentioned Fletcher Cox as well. So those are three defensive linemen who were drafted in the top 12 in the last 6 years. All of them have also made the Pro Bowl. So, he's got a track record there of sort of helping along elite NFL prospects who went into the league and then played well there. And he's been all over the place. He's been at Oklahoma. He's been at Georgia. He's been at USC. He was at Mississippi State, as you mentioned. He's been all over the college ranks and has coached a lot of different kids. So, he's got kind of a unique background, and this is his first, defensive line coaching job in the NFL. So it'll be interesting to see how he adapts to that. But he has been around for a long time teaching defensive line play.
Hey, Jimmy, when, Howie Roseman was listed as the GM from 2010 up until 2014. So that 2010 to 2014, when do you, though, kind of look at him as the guy who was really definitively the guy? I mean, because 2010 and 11, wasn't that Andy Reid time? And then they had that big, hey, we used to use Andy's board, but Howie had his own board, but we never really went off of it. But 2012, we really started to go off more of Roseman's board. And that 2012 draft was much better than 10 and 11. So when you look at Roseman, when do you kind of start judging him?
It all makes my brain hurt. Is the best answer I can get. I really don't know. I mean, I hear certain picks are attributed to this guy, and other picks are attributed to that guy, and it's all very undefined. And I think the fan base is often kind of frustrated by not knowing who's accountable or who's responsible for this or that or the other thing. And I think, to some degree, the media shares that frustration. But yeah, it is kind of annoying that there is, no one to point to on, who's responsible for this, who's responsible for that, and the other way too, who can we give credit to for this, and who can we give credit to for that. So they like to kind of be wishy-washy about that, and that's just how they do it.
Do you buy then when he made it Mitten? Because I think before everyone just assumed he took Marcus Smith because they don't like Howie Roseman. And then the way that he kind of admitted, yeah, I'm the one who did it, fine, pin it on me. It was almost like, I just want this Kelly stuff to go away. I'll do whatever you want me to. Like at that moment was his weakest moment in life right there. He was willing to, accept anything. Now I'm not sure I buy it anymore.
What's crazy is Marcus Smith is still on the team. And everyone's trying to distance themselves from drafting it. It's crazy. He's still on the team. Like, you don't understand. He can see everyone trying to hard and pick him. Yeah, it's unreal that the length with which they kind of went to hide who was responsible for picking that guy. But yeah, how he kind of. I liken that whole scene with when he was interviewed to the courtroom scene in A Few Good Men, where Tom Cruise is going, "Did you order the code red?" But in this case, I was like, "Did you draft Marcus Smith?" Yeah, I drafted Marcus Smith. So it was an odd scene, but yeah. So finally, we got out of somebody that
we've got closure.
Were responsible for the Marcus Smith pick.
Yeah, so we think anyway. So, moving forward, you're down there, he's there, Laurie's there. A lot of people wondering, is Roseman the guy? Is he going to be the guy? Are they down there together because they're trying to find somebody else? It would seem to me that Roseman wouldn't be so aggressive in trying to find someone to rebounce him out of a position that he clearly wants.
Yeah, the dynamic on all that is kind of tough to put a finger on. I would guess that Roseman would probably prefer someone that isn't, sort of that alpha dog type, so that he can kind of, keep all the power that he can. This is all complete total speculation. I really don't know exactly what they're looking for there, but that was certainly something that people hypothesized on when we saw Jeffrey Lurie. In fact, when we saw Jeffrey Lurie, somebody asked, basically, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm here to see players, and he's certainly not scouting players. They're here for. Although in the past, Lurie actually has come down here to kind of take all his anyone affiliated with the Eagles out to a big dinner. So maybe that's what he's doing here this year. I really have no idea, but yeah, he's here, and Howie's here, and Peterson is here, and just about the majority of the coaching staff, at least was here. I don't know if they're still here or not, but yeah, they had a pretty big contingency here.
find it odd. Yesterday, Peterson, I talked to Bradford. He wants to be here. We like him. But, no real commitment. Now, I know they're not going to, but yes, we're going to sign him. But, they seem very non-committal still on Bradford. Wouldn't you think if you were getting hired that they would ask you if you had a definitive answer on the quarterback position when you got hired?
Yeah, I would think that they wanted more. Yeah, I sure. But the answer that he's going to give in an interview is going to be different than the answer that he's going to give the media. So, and when you look at the way they've answered that question, whether you're talking about Peterson or you're talking about Roseman, and even Jeffrey Lurie got the question during the Peterson-Lurie press conference, they've all said the same thing. It's basically been, yeah, he's good, got better as the season progressed, but we're still going through our evaluations. So, all three of them have kind of said the same thing, and it's been kind of, I would consider it a lukewarm endorsement.
Right.
It's certainly, I go back to there's a Seinfeld clip where George goes to see the doctor and he's concerned about something, and he asks if he thinks it's cancer, and he's mad that the doctor doesn't say, "Cancer, get out of here." We haven't gotten that. We haven't gotten the cancer, get out of here answer where Bradford, of course he's coming back. Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jimmy,
there's none of that going on.
It's like any ties. It's almost like we like Bradford, but any ties to that Kelly fella, we want out of here.
Right.
Like when Kelly got hired, anybody that was an Andy Reid guy had to go, and now it's like anybody who has any ties to Kelly, you're out of here, whether we like you or not. You're down there in Alabama. Carson Wentz's name. He seems to be like the hot guy down there. Just give us a little bit of information on what you've seen from him and any other observations, from the exciting Senior Bowl.
I like him. I like Wentz a lot. I actually was on him back. I did a pretty detailed breakdown of his game in the beginning of December, and the big concern with him was, how's he gonna play against better competition, because he's playing, at North Dakota State. So, they're not really playing the Alabamas and the SEC teams. They're playing lower level competition. But he's got a good arm. He's smart. He's got a 4.0 grade point average. He can run. He's got incredible size. It's 6'5", 230. He just looks it. He really just looks the part. He's got nice crisp delivery. There's a little bit of concern about his accuracy when he doesn't set his feet or when he's on the run. But for the most part, what I've seen here, he's been very accurate with his passes. And again, just big guy, big arm, and he can run. So he's kind of a guy that checks off kind of a lot of boxes for what a lot of these teams are looking for at quarterback. So as far as whether he will slip to the range where the Eagles could get him at 13 or, make a modest move up to get a guy like him, that kind of remains to be seen. We're only in January here. So there's another full 2 months to nitpick the living crap out of every prospect, especially quarterback, between now and the draft. So, we'll see how that kind of excuse me, 3 months until the NFL draft.
Well, I think
see how that progresses. But
the draft.
But so far, I do like him.
Yeah, and the draft conversation always seems a little bit more interesting when your team may or may not be in that quarterback discussion. Where in the last couple of years, you really know. I mean, because they had been drafting so a little bit deeper in the draft, it didn't seem that quarterback was a spot. But at number 13, it seems like now, depending the Bradford thing, really, you're probably going to get your answer when and if Bradford is here by draft time.
Yeah, well, because free agency happens before
correct
the draft. So, they're going to have to make a decision on whether they're going to franchise tag him or whether they're going to get a deal done with him or whether they're just going to let him walk. So we will have that answer before the draft. I guess the only thing that could preclude them from having a definitive answer is if they tag him and then just nothing happens until draft time. So, but more likely than not, we'll know whether Sam Bradford is in the picture or not
Yeah, and Doug Peterson spoke down there yesterday, and he kind of commented on some of the areas that he thought was strong. Obviously, the draft process really begins this week, but the Eagles need interior line. You're not going to see a guard taken at 13, right? That's not an area that's that they would target.
You know, there's one guy here that's really good, and his name is Cody Whitehair. He played left tackle at Kansas State this past year. He's also played guard. He played, sort of all over the line in Kansas State throughout his career. And he's really good. Are you going to take a guard at 13? Ugh. It's like, to go through the season, just went through, which was, they finished 7-9, but really it was worse than the record would indicate, in my opinion. And then you come out of it with a guard in the first round and just, I don't know. But he's a really good player. Some people think that he is a viable option at 13. I wouldn't take him. I think there's probably going to be a better prospect available than Whitehair if when they're on the board at 13. Maybe as a trade back option, but yeah, he's kind of the guy here that has turned some heads as far as offensive lines go.
Cool. Good stuff. Jimmy Kempski, PhillyVoice.com. He's down at the Senior Bowl. If you're into all that kind of stuff, he's got a lot of news and notes at Jimmy Kempski on Twitter. Good stuff. Enjoy Alabama. I hear it's nice this time of year.
It's been awful.
All right, pal.
Yesterday it was like 50, but which doesn't sound that bad, but the wind really is whipping through here. So I mean to complain when Philly is and the Jersey Shore is way worse. But
apparently we're having earthquakes here, so I don't know. Maybe you're in a better spot.
Yeah, I don't want to experience an earthquake. So
no.
I'm glad I'm out of town for that.
Thanks, brother. Well, always a pleasure, pal. Enjoy.
All right, Mike. Appreciate it.
All right, that's Jimmy Kempski. Always like talking to Jimmy, and